Hello folks, hello and welcome everyone. This is the third round, this is the final round of our initial run of Twilight Cup Season 2. And I gotta say, even though it has been a fairly short season, it is going to be a pretty good finale, all things considered. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to seeing who is going to stand tall and stand atop of the sheets as the champion of the Twilight Cup. Now, one thing to keep in mind and one thing to look forward to as well is that we have got much more in store from the Lightspeed Racing team. So we've got plenty more series. We've got, for example, a support series coming out. So we have the full fat Twilight Season 2 a couple weeks after this one finishes up. And we have also got a support series, a BMW support series that's going to be coming in just a few hours, a couple hours before the start of this one. So that is one that we really are looking forward to, and one that I am personally unable to contain my excitement for. But let's have a look and let's see where we go to today. And where we're going to today is none other than the Nurburgring. I think as far as season enders go, the Nurburgring GP circuit has got to be up there. Without a doubt, it is definitely up there as one of the best GT3 racing circuits for sure. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what these drivers can do around this track, but this is where we get to see the tables be turned. So with that all being said and with everything in mind, we have got, say, a 30-minute practice session, which we are coming to the end of now. So we'll be jumping in for the final 5 minutes of free practice, just getting a bit of a gauge, seeing who is on the track today, who we can expect to see performing well before, of course, jumping into the racing itself, jumping into quali, where everyone has their shots at setting their best times, and everyone is going to be setting themselves up, acclimatizing to the track before the real deal. So 30 minutes practice, 20 minutes to set a qualifying time, and then we have 45 minutes of racing with no pit stop required. So drivers can take a single setup, single set of tires, run it all the way to the end. The Nurburgring GP circuit, so just over 5,000 meters, 17 corners, is the longest track that we've seen on our short calendar thus far, and one that has definitely produced some good runnings. So looking around and looking at the rest of the field, people to keep an eye on, of course, is going to be Roberto Ricci. After a brilliant performance, has been getting a double win, and they are going to be seating themselves in 84 points, being atop of the record sheets. They're going to be sitting themselves very comfortably at the top, with Daniel Moffat and Paul Sims second and third. In the Pro-Am division, we're going to see Fabio Gallimini, who is going to be driving the 777 car, 296 GT3, also getting double firsts in their class, I believe, with 84 points to their name as well, with Craig Starkey and Robert Homer just behind. And then in the amateur class, Francesco Svelto has been doing excellently alongside Gregorelli and Scott Cameron to put up great performances. But we are about to jump in, and we're going to be seeing who is in the lobby and who we can keep our eyes on. But before we jump into that, just a quick reminder that if you do want to support everything that we do have our Patreon as well, which you can jump over, take a look at if you fancy supporting, getting some extra swag, get some extra perks as well while you're at it. Definitely something that helps us out a lot. So if you want to and are able to, it's certainly an option to support what we do here, as well as making sure to follow, like the stream, and subscribe. That if you are enjoying what we do here at Lightspeed Racing. But enough chit chat, enough dilly dallying. It is time to get ourselves into the racing and time to take a look at our drivers as we are coming up to the final 5 minutes of free practice. So let's see what they can do. We will just jump ourselves in now. And there we are. Okay, so first things first, we're jumping in, and it's going to be on board with Robert Homer. So they're going to be driving the number 6 car, and that's going to be the Porsche GT3 here. As you can see, everyone's got these kind of little silver badges and different sponsors, and it's great to see. And the livery designers, I know I say this every time, but the livery designers are always on point when it comes to the things that they cook up. Speaking of cook, Richard, with a beautiful black and aqua GT3 livery for the Mercedes AMG. But just sort of peeking around, Stuart Pryor, who was one that we definitely kept an eye on over the course of the last race, of the last run, back at Misano. It's certainly one that we kept our eye on for sure. And that Budweiser livery looks about as striking as ever. Points in the chat to whoever can count how many times the word Budweiser appears on that livery, because it seems to be completely plastered over it. And we are absolutely here for it. They are just looking around the field right now. So, of course, main driver to keep our eye on, currently in the pits, but Roberto Ricci is going to be looking very strong here in free practice, a 1:54. And if we can look at the timetable, we can sort of generally see that about, say, 1:54 has been the peak so far, and then everyone seems to equilibrate around the 1:56 point. So we've got 5 drivers in that bracket, or make that 6 drivers in that bracket, with 57s, a couple of 58s and 59s. A few drivers like Dismakes, Svelto and Patan yet to set a time on the board here in free practice, which I gotta say, a little bit concerned. Doesn't really give us much of an idea as to how they are going to perform here in the session. Gallimini now, another very striking looking car, and one of the top performers that we've been seeing in the Pro-Am class. So certainly a driver. Now, for those who are not aware, we do run a 3-class system, so if you see a driver with a white driver number on the timing tower, that is the professional class. If they've got a grey driver number like Gallimini has here, then they are in the Pro-Am division, the middle division, and then if they've got a red driver number, then they are in the amateur class. And that way, it's quite easy to tell who is who. Let's say, good to see people coming in, good to see people popping up in the chat. Hope you're all doing well. But let's look around the field and see who we can keep an eye on. Say, Daniel Moffat is another one that we've been keeping an eye on in the pro class. Although free practice isn't much of an indicator, they are currently at the bottom of the rungs for their respective group. Hopefully we see that jump up further in quali. But one can only wonder. And then looking around the field, looks like most of our drivers are just sort of waiting in the pits now. It seems like everyone's kind of just biding their time. We do have a little bit of a smaller field out there today. Yeah, a little bit of a smaller field out there today. Only 16 drivers on the grid, unfortunately. which is a bit of a shame. But sometimes it can't be helped. This is a fairly late grid in the evening. And so sometimes people can't always make it. But we've got our mainstays and we've got our drivers that we usually love to keep an eye on, like Starkey here, who has certainly been a staunch performer, getting quite aggressive over the curbs there. And 17 now. Tight to the apex, swinging it out onto the throttle. Are they going to get any improvement? Not looking like it. You can see, yeah, stopping out in order to get back into the pits. Baton coming through now. This almost looks like martini colours. I do love it. Minus the red. Very striking. But there we go. Free practice is coming to an end, folks. And looking at the timesheet here, it does look like Richie sets the fastest time in free practice with a 1:54.707 and being a few tenths clear on the majority of the sectors. So once again, looking like a near indomitable force out on track here today, with Stuart Pryor coming up closely behind, Daniel Moffat in third, and then Scott Cameron, who is going to be on the 56.470, along with identical times to Sims and Homer here. So yeah, Robert Homer, and that is going to be pretty much everyone in the pits here. Andreas Hansen, one of the last drivers out. And Patrick Sims is going to be in at P5 here in free practice. Yeah, Patan and Hansen are the last drivers out on track in free practice one. So two amateur class drivers. Can they make any leapfrogs on the field? That is the question, and that is what I wonder. See, heavy on the brakes for the chicane, left right-hander. Managed the weight transfer of the car. A little bit wide on the apex, but maybe coming for a narrow entry to the start-finish straight. But yeah, there we go. Going to be peeling in now, along with Patan, getting a little bit sideways, cooking the rears. Their final lap of the circuit, and then quali is about to begin. And there we are. So immediately, everyone heading back out now, as quali has officially begun. So who's going to be first out on the track? It is going to be Roberto Ricci. They are going to be first out, and they are going to be immediately trying to push. You can see fairly cool air out, but the track temperatures are still quite high. So 29 degrees track temps, but 22 ambient air temperature, so cooling is going to be certainly a little bit easier for these cars. Let's just hope it stays that way, and that they don't get any adverse winds to offend their aerodynamics. Richie trying to get a bit of space to the pack. He doesn't want anyone to try and get a slipstream or anything of the sort here in quali. He wants to just get his top lap, get in, get out, and then run a lap on his terms. You've got pretty much everyone trying to chase down. You've got Starkey, Gallimini, Moffat, Stuart Pryor, Paul Sims, Richard Cook, Robert Homer, Scott Cameron, Dismakes, Roger Dismakes, and Ayrton Kuykoven. Further down with Patan and Spelto, leaving a little bit further behind Hansen, Gregorelli, and then Barham is going to be remaining in the pits, so either waiting for some track space to come out, or it looks like they are going to be biding their time, potentially. We're going to stick it on board with Roberto Ricci here, as he's going to be starting his maiden lap. And we're going to see how our current top runner in the series has done it thus far. Here we go. I think it's only fair we hop on board with him here. See a little bit of engine braking I'm noticing there as well. Using the friction of the engine to help slow your car down in a controlled manner. That's very clever use of the car's mechanical resistance there. So as we're on the static on board. Love the sound of those straight cut gears. You gotta love it. An iconic sound of these GT3 racers is the straight cut gears. See Richie getting very wide on some of the track limits there, just using absolutely every inch of available space to carry as much speed as possible. You see right there, still keeping within 2 wheels, so they are still going to be getting away with it. Yeah, running very aggressively on the curbs. Just trying to push out. There we go. So overall, very clean lines from the Lamborghini here. So pushing hard and pushing fast here. So turn 14, fast right-hander. Carry as much speed as they can before heavy on the brakes here. Really sort of nail the weight transfer, get it on the front. Tip in the cone as well for good measure. 15, 16 and 17 here. Long right-hander. You can sort of choose your apex point depending on your approach. Almost dipping it into the gravel, but as we come through the final corner, that's going to be our initial pulse. It's 154.9, so just 2/10 shy of their final free practice time. And this is just their maiden quali lap. So here we go. Next up is, say, going to be Starkey. He's going to be landing 57.3. You've got a few different drivers. Galamini with a 7.1. Moffat with a 56.3. You've got Paul Sims, who is not going to be having a valid time. Stuart Pryor is not either. Scott Cameron with a 56.7. Ayrton Kaikoven going to be coming across the line now. Going to be getting a 58.3. That's good enough for P7. As Patan and Svelto are also coming through here. 57.8, that's going to be dismantling Kaikoven, and Svelto with a 56.7 is going to put them in one of the podium spots. Hansen now, first lap out on the field. What's it going to be? They didn't really get a chance to set a good time in pre-practice. 59.0, that's going to put them P10. Gregorelli now, coming across the line. P8, 57.5, looking very strong there, and Barham is going to be one of the last across the line. And that is not going to be a valid time. Unfortunate for Barham there. We've got a couple more who may be looking to set a time, and a few who have still got some work to do. So looking at the time here, we have got Pryor, Dismakes, Barham, Cook and Sims still yet to set times on the board, and Roberto Ricci is going to be over a second clear of the rest of the field. We'll keep the timing sheet open as you can see him in the background. Is he going to be getting an improvement here in quali? Maybe burnt a little bit of fuel. It is not. So yeah, 57.6. So this could have been just a setup lap for all we know. And a few drivers. So Galamini improves. Moffat improves as well. So he is going to be coming through there. Paul Sims going to be getting third place on the grid. Stuart Pryor is going to be coming in P14. Richard Cook, 57.3. So Robert Homer is going to be in 5th. And Scott Cameron. Yeah, Scott Cameron really punching above his weight there in that scenario. Any improvement from Kaikoven? Yes, it's going to be enough to push a few tenths, but not enough to make a position. 57.8 to beat. 56.7 for Alba Patan. It's going to be P6. And Francesco Svelto does one better with a 56.1. Great job there. Dismakes not going to be setting a time, unfortunately. Next up is Gregorelli. And Gregorelli is going to be putting a P9 on the board with a 57.3. So good job there. Hansen is not going to get an improvement, unfortunately. And Starkey is going to be coming out of the pits, it looks like now, after their first run there. Barham is going to be setting a time, and it's good enough for P9. And Cameron's gone into the pits for now. I think he's sort of settled that he's going to be just fine for the time being. Roberto Ricci could be coming through to set another good lap here. It's looking very good on the race logic timer. Could this be it? Could this be another new time? 54.6. That is an improvement. Best time we've seen so far. And that is going to push his lead even further in the series so far. Let's take a bit of a look around the grid and see who we can keep an eye on. So let's sort of jump to near the finish line. Patan is going to be coming across the line. Turkish racer maybe looking to set a fresh time on the board, but at 58.4 they are not going to be getting an improvement here. Dismakes is going to be setting a time, and it's going to be a 58.6, so that is going to be good enough for 15th spot right now. And Gregorelli could be the next one out on the field to get a run. It is an improvement. They're going to jump Barham up to P9. Hansen now, 59 to beat, 57.9 they get. They leapfrog Dismakes at the line. Craig Starkey is going to be starting a lap here, and Barham has an opportunity, and he does immediately get that P9 back with a 56.9. Great job there from the Aston Martin driver. See, coming around the final corner, is Richie going to get another improvement on their previous time? Yes, they are. 54.4. This Lamborghini is looking absolutely unstoppable here. And Scott Cameron is going to be starting a lap now, but yes, they absolutely unstoppable. 54.4. That's the best time we've seen by a country mile on this track so far. Looking very strong right now. Stuart Pryor gets a 55.9. They're going to pump themselves up into P4 with Robert Cook getting a P6 and Robert Homer getting Richard Cook, my apologies. So far, we're seeing some good improvements around the field. But nobody seems to be making massive strides. It's more a case of leapfrogging their opponents in the immediate vicinity. Alpa Patan. Any improvement there? Fortunately not. Dismakes is going to get improvement. 58.1, but they are going to remain in P16 for the time being. Gregorelli is going to head into the pits. Looks like they had an off coming out of turn 15, and Hansen getting very sideways coming through turn 17 there. And as a result, they are not going to get that improvement they so desperately desired. Craig Starkey not going to get an improvement either. Harry Barham is going to get P11. He is going to get his fastest time, but he's been demoted by a lot of the other drivers. And if we look back at the timetable, you can see everyone's set a time. The time really you want to be in is the 56s. 56 is that nice middle ground that you want to be in. Mid 56 is going to place you about P7, P8. But of course, you want to be at the cusp of the 55s if you want to have a good time on your hands. And a fairly stable spot. And you can see his drivers are flying through here. Looks like they've set their initial runs. Track is getting slightly hotter, and we are seeing a couple of moves. But by and large, nothing crazy. Galamini is going to be jumping up to 3rd spot. Great quali lap from them. Robert Homer not going to get that improvement. Daniel Moffat is the one we've been keeping an eye on. Are they going to be setting the world on fire? Sadly not. 56.2, not an improvement on their previous run. Francesco Spelto now. They have an opportunity here. It's a 2:01 and it's not what they want, with Ayrton Kuykoven also lacking in that run. Paul Sims looks like they're going to be starting a lap here, so in fact we're going to stick with them in order to see what they do. And see how they can best control that Lamborghini, because we've seen sort of two schools of thought. We've seen Richie's lap, and now we want to see how some of the others do it. Maybe start to dissect some of the differences. Right away, I'm noticing he doesn't seem to be as confident on throttle, and the car's looking a little bit less settled. So I believe that was another car just going off the track briefly there. We did have yellows out for a split second. Yeah, a few drivers. So that was Patan just coming into the pits. They went off track. Yeah, if you're wondering about the little bars either side of the quali, that just simply means that we have a brief incident that is usually just drivers exiting to the pits. Sticking on board with Sims here. Little bit wide on the apex. But still arcing the car out quite nicely. So carrying as much speed as they can. They've got to set themselves up well, set up their line. Braking just at the 50 board. Very aggressive on the brakes. They're a little bit wide through 15 and 16. Just turn 17 now. Yeah, pick your apex point. Close to the curb. This looks like a promising run here. And a 56.6. It is not going to be. I believe they may have lost a fair bit of time in that midsection, losing some space to the apexes, which is a little bit unfortunate. And Roberto Ricci is back out on track with Robert Patan taking a little bit more of a stylish entry into the pits. We'll call it that. Call that a stylish pit entry. 56.9 from Craig Starkey we just caught there is going to put themselves up into P12, with Gary Barham not going to be getting an improvement on their previous. Next up to cross the line as we head to the final 5 minutes of qualifying is Andreas Hansen. 57.9 to beat. They want to at least leapfrog the likes of Kuykoven, who's a few tenths up on him. Are they going to get that improvement? No, they are not. I believe this was a setup lap, if nothing else. Kuykoven is, in fact, right behind them. Are they going to be pushing that advantage any further? No, they are not. And Richard Cook is going to be getting 57. 56.2 of Scott Cameron. Any improvement here? No. So overall looking like a few drivers trying to fish out for some improvements, and it's not happening. Oh, Robert Homer getting very disoriented, heading into the grass there, just way too aggressive on turns 15 and 16. You know they're going to be heading back straight into the pits. Yes, they do. But yeah, just a little bit too much for 15 and 16, just lifting the rear, really throwing their car out of balance. But Daniel Moffat, great lap there, so 55.4. That is going to leapfrog Paul Sims, put them up in P2. Great job done by them. And then we've got a few drivers who are about to cross the line here. Paul Sims is going to be going for another run. Are they going to get an improvement? Take that P2 back to 55.9, but it's not good enough. Stuart Pryor now setting up their lap. And Roberto Ricci going to be coming across the line with a 55.1. So they are not going to be improving on their previous. Alpha Patan got a little bit shaky earlier in Sector 2. Let's cross the line, setting up their lap. Craig Starkey is going to get an improvement, going to put himself up to P10 with a 56.6, so Good job from the Aston Martin driver there, and slotting themselves slap in the middle with Gary Barham putting themselves into the pits for the time being. We've got 2 minutes lefty, 2 minutes 50 left in qualifying here. So realistically, we have a chance for one more good lap from these drivers. Maybe two if they can squeeze it out and get out there just in time. Ayrton Kuykoven, 59.1, no improvement. Richard Cook now coming across the line, 56.7, no improvement either. Daniel Moffat is certainly one we're keeping an eye on. He improved last lap out. And I do wonder, with the reduced fuel load, if they're going to be improving even further. Maybe even staying out. Compromising between the tyre grip and the reduced fuel load to try and hit some peak times. Sticking on board with the Aston Martin. Any improvement here? 55 flat. Excellent job there from Daniel Moffat. That is a brilliant shot, and that is going to be a very comfortable P2, it looks like. Unless someone like Paul Sims could dethrone them here. As we see, are they about to do so? 56.3, no. It's not going to be it. Stuart Pryor next up, 56.6. Going to be another one. Roberto Ricci is going to be getting a 54.2. That is ridiculous from the Lamborghini driver. They are just brutally dominating this field so far. We've got couple runs, last few runs for some of these drivers here. I think they've sort of conceded and accepted that fact. Alpha Patan is going to get an improvement. They're going to be jumping up to P9, so good job there. Greg Starkey, no improvement. And Ayrton Kuykoven. We are Kuykoven here. Any improvement? No, just a couple of tenths shy. With Richard Cook also just shy of their original time, which is unfortunate. Hansen has a potential opportunity to improve here. Last lap was their setup, and now they have a shot. Are they going to jump up? No, they are not. It's not looking like these drivers are going to get much of a change in that opportunity. We are Fabio Gallimini now. This is going to be their last run, and you can see they're abandoning. They're heading into the gravel, and they're going to be heading back into the pits there. So Gallimini is not going to be improving. Best they're going to get is P4. Paul Sims now, final run across the line. What is it going to be? A 56.9, no improvement. Stuart Pryor is going to jump up. Is going to be heading into P3. It's going to be leapfrogging the other Lamborghini of Paul Sims. Craig Starkey is abandoning his run. He's going to be heading back into the pits as well. I think he knows that the writing is on the wall for that one. And we've got the last couple drivers. We've just got Kuykoven and Hansen left out on the track. So let's see what these two can do. But this looks like a fairly signed, sealed, delivered qualifying and winning qualifying. Putting themselves in pole position is going to be Roberto Ricci with a 54.202. Domineering performance alongside Daniel Moffat with the Aston Martin, a 55 flat and a 55.2 from Stuart Pryor. Paul Sims is going to be P4 with Gallimini in P5. And as we switch back to the action out on track, Ayrton Kuykoven is going to be coming across the line. Are they going to be getting an improvement? They are going to improve. It's going to be good enough for P14. But I don't think that was enough for a place. And Hansen getting very sideways, very slidey through 15 and 16. So I think as they come across the line, yep, that is going to be no improvement there from Hansen. And that is going to be quali completed. So Svelto in P6, picking up from where we left off. Richard Cook in P7, Scott Cameron, Alban Patan in P9, Robert Homer in P10, Craig Stark in P11, Gary Barham in P12, Antonio Gregorelli in P13, Ayaton Kai Koven in P14, Andreas Hansen in P15, and Roger Dismukes in P16. You can see the cars bouncing, everyone's getting those sort of final lock-ins for themselves, final lock-ins for their cars before the race is set to begin. And it's 45 minutes with no mandatory pit stop. So drivers can run it all the way to the very end. The time will only tell who is going to come out on top here in this session. We'll of course see as soon as the session begins in just a few minutes here, folks. Just the final lock-ins for everyone to get themselves rigged up, get themselves set up, and we are good to go. Now, of course, as we have done a couple times before, we are going to be having live updates for penalties and for stewarding. Thanks to the great team here at Lightspeed Racing, we do have live stewarding available to us. And here we go. Say, session is starting in just a few minutes. So 1 minute and 15. So far, looks like the track conditions are quite favourable. So here's a fairly fast track, but we'd say 29 degrees track temps, 23 degrees ambient temperature. So we've got a good balance of on-track heat along with cool air to keep these ferocious racing machines in check. Because when you're running the amount of horsepower and the highly strung engines these things are, tends to get a little bit hot in the engine bay. Certainly for these drivers as well. It's often why quite a few of the cars you might see have got grills in some of the windows. That is to draw air in and try and keep the drivers cool, or at least cool enough to where they can still function. We're not driving in luxury here, folks. They have still got stripped out engine bays and full roll cages, along with full race suits. So if the weather's too hot or too cold, tough. But anyway, this is where the session officially begins. And this is where formation is starting. And you can hear the engines roaring. There you go. Got first lap to get some heat into the tyres, get the cars warmed up and up to operating temperature. And make sure that these drivers are fully ready to go. You can see there the wiggling back and forth, just trying to work the rubber underneath them. Get it to the point where it's nice and sticky. Able to keep that GT3 car firmly glued to the road once the aero is working as well. Not really much to say here at this point, folks, other than we are waiting to see who's going to be coming out on top. So let us know in the chat, for those who are there, let us know who is going to be your pick in each class for who's going to come out on top today. because you've got 3 different classes to choose from, remember. You've got the Pro class, currently led by Roberto Ricci. You've got the Pro-Am class, currently led by Fabio Gallarmini in the Ferrari 296. A very striking purple paint job. And then you've got Francesco Spelto leading the amateur class here in the Nurburgring. So maybe it could be these guys who did the best in qualifying, or it could be someone completely different. Either way, let us know in the chat who you've got pegged to win for each class. But this is where we get to the final few corners and everyone slows down to formation speed. Everyone is slowing down, getting into proper formation, so that as soon as they hear green, 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 go, 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 then they know to absolutely gun it. Ooh, Fabio Gallarmini getting a little bit of an interesting line through the gravel. A little bit shaky there from some. So here we go. Cars all formed up. This is round 3 of the Twilight Cup for Lightspeed Racing. Let's do this. 45 minutes, no pit stops. It's time to go. And you can hear just about any second now. There you go. There is the call. It's go, go, go. It's a good getaway from Scott Cameron as well as Richard Cook. You can see a little bit further behind there. You can see and look down further at the field. And oh, that's Fabio Gallarmini. That's Fabio Gallarmini going down at the inside, and that is a huge collision. So Paul Sims completely out at the back here, along with Cook, Hansen, Dispicus. It's absolute chaos coming out at the start. Robert Homer, and then, yeah, say Gallarmini. Not sure what happened there. Did they get tipped on the back between themselves and between maybe another driver that they were next to? Either way, that car is looking beat up. So they had a severe shunt on the front, and then, of course, piling into the other cars on the track too. That's got to be a tough one. I'm not sure how that's going to affect their race, but it's certainly a pretty bad start there. You can see the timing tower having a little bit of a moment as it tries to sort of comprehend what's going on there. You can see in all of that chaos, Roberto Ricci, Daniel Moffat have managed to get a very clean getaway from the rest of the field. Alpa Patan as well currently leads the amateur class up in P3 and net P1 for their respective group. I wonder how well he's handling the pressure, because you can see that Stuart Pryor is kind of breathing down his neck and he's not going to let that one go lightly. He'll want to rejoin his main group. Then you have, say, Scott Cameron, net P2. Starkey currently leads the Pro-Am division. After that big incident with Gallarmini dropping them right down, and then Barham not far behind. It's like a little bit of an altercation happening between the likes of, say, Sims and Hansen there. Getting very close. Still too close for comfort, might say, to some. There you go, first lap down. And a chaotic lap that definitely was. I think that's a bit of an understatement. Sims going quite wide there, maybe looking for a move on Hansen that just did not materialize. But Hansen was interestingly getting flagged with fastest lap, so AC Spectator will be AC Spectator. And no, I still have not got set up ACC race control, but I will be, because I will hopefully, if all goes well, be returning for the other series of Twilight Cup in a short while. But yeah, Francesco Spelto. And oh, Hansen's round. Hansen is round on track. Just coming into the second sector. They lost the rear, it seems like. Just make sure they make a safe rejoin and they're not in anyone's way. Did manage to dodge a bullet there, say Richard Cook. But you can see a move between Dismukes and Svelto as well. Svelto going very wide to the outside, almost going a bit in the gravel, trying to fully commit to that move that they're making. Svelto is going to have the inside of this next corner, and Dismukes is going to be keeping it tight alongside. Are they going to be netting each other the space? Gregorelli is going to be trying to see what moves they themselves can get out of this. Svelto is going to get the move round. Gregorelli is going to be continuing the pressure and the attack, but is not going to make anything move just yet, and in fact goes very deep onto the gravel. That's going to lose them some serious time. Looking a little bit further up, you've got Paul Sims down in P10. Looks like he's lost a couple positions. Not really sure what's happened there. As Starkey is doing a little bit of a flash, saying hi to the crowd as he tails on Scott Cameron. That 720S GT3 car looking mean, especially in the Golf palette. Looking very mean, and we love it here. We are looking a little bit further down, as it does seem to me that this battle is far from over. So of course we have Francesco Svelto down in P12, but we have Dismukes and Gregorelli both fighting for a similar position and fighting for space out on the track. They're getting very close to each other. They're very much on even keel, both running the 992 GT3. And now we wonder who is going to come out on top. Setup's going to play a factor. Dirty air. The different aero configurations, suspension configurations. And in fact, we might be seeing soon some of the updates come through from the stewards regarding what happened earlier. So from the reports that I am seeing, according to the stewards' reports, and we will see those penalties sort of come through in the meantime, it does seem to be that Richard Cook maybe went into the back or tapped in some way Fabio Gallimini, which then created the concertina effect and resulted in collisions with multiple drivers. But this is all a little bit of a domino effect, if you will. Not concertina, that's a misuse of wording there. But that was going to leave Richard Cook with a penalty to their name. And also going to be seeing themselves... And there you go, say 20 seconds has been applied to Richard Cook there for the incident on lap 1. And that is going to be also 15 seconds coming in for Fabio Gallimini for, of course, the later incidents as a result of what happened with Cook. So it looks like that's the main action to come out of that. And we look around to the rest of the field to see what could happen from there. Robert Homer is kind of closing in on Ayrton Kuykoven. It's very much closing in at this point. So he wants to be with the rest of his pack. He wants to be with Starkey and Barham. You can call it a little bit tribalist, but these drivers are very much running their own races. So if they see another car from another division, they treat it like traffic. They want you out of the way. You see, in fact, Paul Sims is just behind, eagerly awaiting any outcomes from the battle between these two. Although at this rate, it looks like they could become the primary protagonist in this battle itself. Yeah, we do have a little bit of updates as well, just from around the field in general. So there was a little bit of an incident, it looks like, between car number 74, so that's Scott Cameron, and also between Francesco Svelto. So between those two, that's going to be no further action from the stewards. And then we also have an incident between Hansen and between... Let's see, we a look through here. Say Hansen and Sims, but that is going to be a racing incident, it's been decided. See, Homer's going to be taking a little bit of a defensive line as they know Paul Sims is just behind, chasing that 992 GT3 down. They are absolutely on the hunt. Looks like Homer themselves is also going to be searching for a way to chase down the Aston Martin of Kai Coben just ahead. Looks like he's getting a little bit impatient too. You can see throwing his car a little bit to the right, just trying to angle up any attack that they could potentially make. A little bit of deformation I'm noticing on their right side, so that must have been the incident earlier between themselves and Hansen. Getting a little bit of deformation on the car's body panels. So wounded car, wounded aero profile. And oh, what has happened there with Sims? What was that? Did they maybe just overestimate the braking zone? Either way, that is a serious corner cut. And I would not be surprised if the stewards take a little bit of a look at that one. Very bizarre move there from that Lamborghini. See, looking up and looking further round, got to check in just on these two drivers very quickly. Craig Starkey and Gary Barham, both running Aston Martin Vantages, both pushing to their absolute limits. And we could very well see Barham try and make a move if the time serves. So you've got 34 minutes left of the race here. Looking like a little bit of a dicey situation for Starkey here, not gonna lie folks, because it does seem like he's stuck between a rock and a vantage. So Scott Cameron has got a fairly sizable gap, about half a second to a second's gap on Starkey at the moment, which he cannot easily make up. But Barham is continuing to close that gap, get a little bit more aggressive. You saw very aggressive through turns 15 and 16 too. Very, very aggressive. And that, of course, is going to lend themselves to an interesting race. I do wonder if Barham is meant to have a livery on that car, or if he did genuinely choose to go for a matte black style. If it's the matte black, I can respect it, but if not, then he didn't sync it up before the race. Because I ran the sync before we started. I'm starting to notice little details on these cars as well, like how the window wiper is central and mounted upwards so it doesn't pose an uneven aero surface. Which is crazy because they've turned the wiper almost like into a fin, like a stabilizing fin. So they both made sure that they've not got an uneven aero surface and that they've got themselves sort of fairly balanced. But saying that, looks like other cars have their wipers at various states, and looks like Paul Sims has got past Robert Homer and is now trying to chase down Ayrton Kaykoven. We're going to hop on board with them, hop in the hood cam, see what they can make of the situation. So Ayrton's going to be going very defensive as a means to protect themselves from the Lambo's attack. Looks like a bit of a bad exit there for Paul Sims. We're just sort of taking a minute to appreciate the art of these two drivers battling it out. The different lines, the different approaches. You can see Kaykoven taking a bit of a later apex to carry more speed. Also running more defensive lines. Didn't quite get the apex there. Paul Sims looking to close the gap and exploit that. Get very close here to the back of that Aston. But get too close and they get a bit of dirty air through the corners, which they're going to have to compensate for. Oh, very close between these two. You can tell that Sims is absolutely chomping at the bit trying to get on and trying to get in there. Really is antsy to get past this Aston Martin. We can see this could be the opportunity. They're going to fire it down the inside, maybe. No, Kaykoven, and oh, very loose on the rear from Sims. Sims is round and just about manages to save it and get out of the way of Francesco Svelto in time. Oh, really close there. That could have been a serious incident if they didn't get control of that car before it went back on track. So good job on the recovery there from Paul Sims, but that's still going to land themselves all the way down the order and going to throw themselves down into P10 here. Not looking good for that Lamborghini. They're going to have to work their way back up. Looks like Richard Cook is in the pits and has seemingly retired. It looks like a retirement from the race, in all honesty, because they are not moving in the pits. They have not really sort of changed any tyres or made any reason for it. I think they're just calling time. Gary Barham also looks like he's struggling a little bit with that car at the moment. He's kind of fighting it. Sort of struggling to keep the reins on it right now. I wonder how Barham is holding up in there. Well, we have crossed the 15-minute mark. We have 28 minutes to go left in this race, and so far looking like a fairly strong race for the likes of Roberto Ricci, with Scott Cameron leading the amateur division and Craig Starkey holding the line for the Pro-Am drivers. Here we look up and we see the Craig Starkey getting a little bit shaky there. Really not having a good exit out of turn 14, and that could be an opportunity that Barham could exploit. And you can see they briefly considers it, but chooses to yield. In fact, what that probably was more was maybe just getting out of the way of their dirty air so they could have better braking. And it's these tiny considerations that really set ACC apart from its competitors. See Starkey going very much to the inside of the track, try and draw off the slipstream from Barham. And try and put him into a more difficult position to attack from. Yeah, Starkey's car looking quite bouncy here, to be very honest with you. Does look like a little bit floaty. Yeah, it does look rather floaty on the rear, and Barham is getting dangerously close to Mr. Sim Racing Mafia over here. As we hop on the onboard, you can see they have their target ahead of them. Scott Cameron is that target. So 157.4 is their previous lap, so not quite at their peak pace. So the long right hander being a bit more of a double apex. Now Starkey just needs to focus here. He's got a good opportunity and he's got a means to continue pushing. And what's happened to Kai Coven, as they have dropped much further down the grid? All of a sudden they're behind all of the other competitors in their sort of relative class. But anyway, looking up ahead, Kai Coven drops down to P10. Sorry. Yeah, Kai Coven down to P10. Scott Cameron looking like a untouchable opponent to these two right here. And they've got a massive gap ahead of them. So Stuart Pryor is kind of running in a space of his own, as is Daniel Moffat. So, you know, those two in particular are going to be very happy with the current proceedings. And the procession must go ahead. Roberto Ricci, though, looking really just untouchable as it currently stands, and seems to be untouchable for most of this series. So far, the main thing to keep an eye out for is Starkey v Barham. These two are not going to let each other go lightly. And then around the field as well, we could see a mini battle break out between Gregorelli and Dismuquez, because these two have certainly been each other's throats for a fair while by now. Eagerly await what these two can come up with. I think Gregorelli, as far as his race goes, just keep the pressure on and bide your time, because there's nothing really that you can do at this point apart from just keep the steady pressure on and force your opponent into making a mistake. It looks like Fabio Gallimini is kind of just limping along. I do wonder how his race has been affected by it. That car does not look nor sound very healthy. You can see they're missing the apex. That car does not look happy at all. It has definitely seen better days. And yeah, jumping up ahead, Richie, say 54.9, best lap so far in the session. proud holder of fastest lap, as they have been almost grand slamming this series so far. Time can only tell what these drivers can do. I'm certainly very excited for the rest of the series and the Twilight Cup in full swing, along with Twilight Bimmer Time, which is our support series. So you'll be able to catch that from 8 o'clock UK time as opposed to 9:30 UK time, directly preceding the later rounds of this cup. I'm certainly looking forward to that. May potentially be commentating on it, who knows? Haven't decided yet. It has not been confirmed. I'll look a bit further down, and it looks like Barham and Starkey have traded places amidst all of the other action around the rest of the track. So can Starkey reclaim that spot, or is he going to play it a little bit safe against Barham here? See, both gunning for it. I'm going to stick on board with Starkey for just a second in order to see what he does. Again, we see that Barham goes very aggressive over turns 15 and 16. I think that's a major difference between these two, at least from what I'm seeing, is the level of aggression towards the curb. Starkey plays it a little bit safe, which I can immensely respect, because it's very easy to lose these cars, and putting a foot wrong can mean disastrous consequences, as we saw earlier with the likes of Paul Simps. So losing the rear, sometimes that can be very difficult to catch. So as we take a bit of a look from above, we can also see some other areas of the track potentially for other competitors to come through. And really just pay attention to how much the track undulates and curves. Probably a big difference than with some of the other tracks is the cambering and curving of the circuit, which can play a very big factor. The helicam giving us a wonderful perspective over the rest of the action, and also giving us a bit of a window into other fights going on the track at the same time. But nonetheless, oh, Starkey going very deep there. Through, say, turn 12. Looking very bullish with how that move could have gone, and now they put themselves about a second behind Gary Barham. So not a great position to be in. And now Barham has got a lot less pressure on his rear. If Starkey can get this back, then great, but I'm not holding my breath, because that is quite the gap that they need to make up. And Gallimini really suffering here. Looking around the rest of the field, anyone to say particularly keep an eye on. Everyone's kind of running in their own space, which is both good and bad. Good for the drivers, because that means no drama, but for us, it does mean that we aren't going to see that much. It is a little bit unfortunate that we're going to see a little bit less of a driver turnout for our final race. But it is a league with a difficult time zone, so I can understand why some people may not be able to make it. Just is unfortunate. Yes, we would have loved to see 20 plus. There we go then. So Starkey learned his lesson. No longer making the super bullish move into turn 12, and has closed a gap. It looks like. At least closed a partial gap from themselves to Gary Barham. So the closest real other battle that we could have on track is Ayrton Kuykoven versus Roger Dismukes here. And I guess we could take a little bit of a look at the timings. You can see there, yeah, so Cook has come in with just 2 laps onto their name and has in effect retired from the race, which is unfortunate. So that means that we've only got 14 runners on the track, and you've got drivers who are, say, coming through to their 15th lap now. A fairly sizable time gap between the lot of them. The point where our sector times and our timing towers are kind of broken. So Richie about 14 seconds away, 28 seconds to Pryor, 34 from Cameron, 37 from Barham, 38.5 between himself and Starkey. And then the timing process begins again. A little bit awkward with this timing tower, cannot lie to you there. With how it records timings. Yeah, not the most reliable, sadly. Far from the most reliable. Yeah, I do want to take a look at Paul Sims quickly and inspect whether he maybe has any damage from some of his earlier mishaps. And 13 minutes to go, folks. 13 minutes. So we could see our wrapping of the championship tonight, depending on these drivers' performances in the last around 10 minutes. Quadricorsa. Very interesting, see, blue and green livery adorning this Lamborghini of Sims here, and I see quite a variety in the visual design of some of these cars. So we've got fairly simple designs, so anything ranging from this really nice emerald green on Robert Homer's car all the way to, say, Adidas style, or Adidad, I should say, which I'm a big fan of. I'm very much a fan of this. I say hop in, so very nice. Say all the way to the matte black, to the Golf livery of Scott Cameron here, who really has done well to find his own space. The Budweiser sticker bomb, it almost feels like, of Stuart Pryor. Very nice black and gold of Daniel Moffat, and then say subtle black and gold of Roberto Ricci. So Andreas Hansen, although, ooh, what has happened to Hansen's hood? It's to become completely separated and looks like he's really struggling with turning as a result. So his aero's definitely been affected by an earlier incident. So that car does not look to be gripping up at all. Looking very disheveled. And that is playing havoc with his race right now. I wonder if he's in a very similar position to the likes of Galamini here, who we saw as they also got a damaged hood and got quite a bit of aero package damage as well. I wonder if that's sort of playing havoc with their race. But here we go, final 10 minutes of the race now, folks. And we have got definitely some big winners and some big losers from each category. I think we're going to start with the winners first. And it's kind of no contest. Roberto Ricci in the Pro Division is looking nigh unstoppable right now. Even with some brilliant drive from the likes of Stuart Pryor, Daniel Moffat, it's looking like he's absolutely untouched in this class. Especially with the two Ragsdales seemingly absent this round. And then another big winner is going to be Scott Cameron. We always see at least one driver in these series who really loves to punch above their weight, so to speak. And that driver is definitely going to be Scott Cameron today. So despite being in the amateur division, the so-called lowest of the three classes here, out on track at the Nurburgring today for round 3 of the Twilight Cup, they are in P4 overall, so they are ahead of all of the other Pro-Am drivers, for instance. And that is certainly something that's got to be commended. They're even ahead of one of the pros, of Paul Sims, who has not had a good race in and of themselves. And then another winner has got to be Gary Barham, because he's done a really good job here of sort of coming in the Pro-Am division, going up, showing out, and so far with just over 8.5 minutes to go, is looking like a near indomitable force. Looking like a very good run here for Gary Barham. In terms of, say, oh well, I wouldn't say losers, I think that's a rude way to put it, but certainly those who have not had as good a round as others, I've got to say Paul Sims, definitely not looking like the best round for him. Of course, we saw he was getting a little bit stuck behind the likes of Homer Kaikoven. And then we had a big corner jump, big corner cut on turn 15, which kept him in the fight, but at what cost is my question. So not been a great race for Paul Sims so far. He does have a bit clean air in front of him, so he could potentially make some time up. That isn't going to change the fact that he's got a lot of work ahead of him. Another one I've got to say is going to be Richard Cook, as you can see him sort of sitting in the pits. He's really not had a good race. As he had that early lap point incident with Galamini, who is going to be another one who we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, say Richard Cook definitely not had a good time this time out, to the point where they retired just 2 laps in. Galamini, I've got immense respect for, I gotta say, because even with, it looks like, a damaged car and severely limping, they continue to soldier on, and a driver that finishes the race even in adverse conditions and when it feels like all is lost is definitely a driver you've got to respect. Interestingly, one thing that I've sort of picked up on is that Kai Koven is running the older spec Vantage compared to the new guys, which, of course, we got BOP, so it's not going to make that much of a difference on performance, but it's just a curious thing to note. The old spec Vantage compared to the likes of the new one, which Starkey, Barham and Moffat are all running. Very bizarre choice, but certainly one that never can be called lacking in terms of creative flair. What's next? We're going to see the SLS AMG out. Do wonder what next. But one thing that's not left up to the imagination is the fact that Hansen is really losing out on the pace, to the point where Moffat is now behind them and swiftly chasing them down in that Vantage GT3. Let's see, can an efficient move be made? And you can see there an example of the good sportsmanship being put on by our LSR drivers, as there are blue flag overtaking rules. As a result, he's going to step out of the way, nice and clean. Great job there, Hansen. Certainly a good sport, one of many. Looks like one of the things that is going to be heating up. And speaking of good sports and fighting chances, Craig Starkey is on the back of Barham. He's flashing his lights. He's flashing his lights. He's letting them know, hello, sunshine. Guess who's back and come to play? It's me, Mr. Addy Dad himself. Let's see how these two fight. See, right out the gate, noticing aggression on the curbs, trying to see if they can carry more speed. Also continually making sure that Barham knows that the fight is on. In fact, you can see Barham with a little bit of shakiness on the rear, but they maybe are starting to feel a little bit of pressure from the likes of Starkey. One thing's for sure though, if he's going to make a move, he's got to be quick about it, because he's only got 4 minutes of time left. So any moves that are going to be made kind of have to be made now, unless he wants to run the risk of flying a little bit too close to the sun and trying to pull an Icarus when it's not going to end well for him or Starkey. Keep our eyes trained on these two for just a moment here, as this looks like the place to be looking. So he's got camera a little bit further up now. I believe that is Stuart Pryor as well, just to the right. See Starkey going super aggressive, almost to the point of going on the gravel as a means to try and close that distance. Don't want to be too gung-ho. We saw last time what happened when you go gung-ho. We don't want to see any more offs at turn 12. He is keeping it on the straight and narrow, however. Overall does seem to be losing a little bit of pace. Time is running short. 1 minute 45 to go. This is realistically the last lap that he can do anything here. And looking around the rest of the field, you can take a brief look at the likes of Roberto Ricci, who's really just unmatched at the moment and looks to be taking the champion. Looks to be taking the champion title here in the Nurburgring after a near perfect season. Galamini is certainly going to be wishing that today went differently after how this has gone for him. Regularly pushing. Cook certainly wishes things could have been different. Dismukes and Ayrton Kaikoven could also be having a bit of a scrap, having a bit of a battle between the two. You can see Dismukes going very narrow onto the grass and just losing the car there. Very briefly managing to catch it, but that's certainly going to hurt their chances of a good fight here. Kaikoven is going to live to fight another day, and Homer is going to be well into a space of their own. They have nothing to fear. So we jump back to our conveniently timed and conveniently placed battle between the two Astons. Tale of two vantages. Looking around as the final checkered flag is set to fall. Hansen, interestingly, going into the pits, kind of calling their race now. And that is the race timer over. So as soon as our race leader crosses the line, that is the official checkered flag being dropped, folks. So there you go. Hansen is going to retire into the pits, knowing their fate in P14. And then looking around, we are going to jump to our main man, our champion of the Pro Division. And looking absolutely untouchable. There you go, coming around the final corner now. Roberto Ricci comes across the line. You can see the celebratory waggle. Great job there from that Lamborghini. And that is time to call it there. And we can see the rest of our drivers start to peel into the pits now. So second place, Daniel Moffat. Great drive from him there. And Stuart Pryor soon to follow with Scott Cameron. Ooh, looks like, say, Barham did manage to close the gap to him a little bit. Starkey, unfortunately, did not make the run and did not get that P5 back. But here you go, say, Stuart Pryor in third place there. Scott Cameron coming in to P4 with Gary Barham P5. Craig Starkey in P6. Robert Homey in P7. Paul Sims in P8. Francesco Svelto in P9. And then looks like Kaikoven and Dismukes traded places. So there we go. Roger Dismukes coming in P10. With Kaikoven coming in P11. You can see almost a sedentary cruise down the final corner. Looks like they're even going to forfeit. Oh no, they're going to be forfeiting. So P11 is in fact going to go to Gregarelli, where Kaikoven's kind of abandoned it down the line. with Gallimini. I mean, P13 and P14 going to Hansen. But there we are, folks. As you can see, the season has concluded and the donuts are coming out. Svelto looking very happy with themselves here. A little bit, yeah, say celebratory donut, never hurt anybody. But for many, that is it. So there we are. Say Patan and Cook dropping out very early, with Hansen dropping into P14. But there you go. That is our race officially over, folks. And that is our season over as well. So the time has come where we have to say goodbye. The time has unfortunately come where we say goodbye here, folks. So it has been amazing with these 3 rounds. And although brief they may have been, I certainly won't be gone for that long. It certainly won't be the last you see of me. And seeing these brilliant drivers out here today, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that we have got an electrifying season with the Twilight Cup and with other series in good time as well. So this is where we sign off. Of course, be sure to join the Discord. Check us out on Patreon if you enjoy what we do here. And now, with the time coming to an end and the Twilight Cup coming to an end, we've got a couple of weeks, but then we start Twilight Cup. Much bigger, much better, much larger season. And we see along a much larger season just what some of these drivers can do. But for now, for a few weeks, I've been Sappy. I'm signing out. And I'll see you very, very soon. Take care, everyone. You've been amazing in the chat, amazing in the audience. Good night.